All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun. And today, at least for right now in this video, we are talking about episode 4 of the Man in the High Castle's final season. We have been revisiting this show uh, to kind of take a look back and see how I feel about the show now after covering the first 3 seasons and then the fourth in one big video years ago now. And what I found is I was not right about, at least for myself and my own enjoyment. Like, I disagree with some of the takes that I had, especially about the writing and the characters, things that I all think are really good on this show. For some reason, I don't know what I was going through back then, and I don't know how much the story was bothering me. I guess it was bothering me quite a bit, but I found out that I don't agree with my past self, and I want to thank Adam, a longtime subscriber and friend to the channel, recommended I do this and look into this, and I'm glad I am. This episode, I'm not sure if we're going to cover 4 or 5, even as I'm recovering it or covering it right now. And we'll just see how it goes. This might be just a part 4. It might be part 4 and 5 mixed together. There are 3 stories that are taking place in this. You've got Juliana talking to a resistance person after she comes back. You got the San Francisco stuff with children, a little bit with keto, and a little bit with the BCR. Not much. And then the majority of this is John Smith's story with the dinner with Himmler and John's desire to save his family, what's left of it, and what he's going to do to try to ensure that. But this episode, is also we're going to be discussing propaganda. I don't know for how long. I don't know where this is going to take me and how far I'm going to go with it, but we're definitely going to talk about it. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Juliana's stuff. Because, and I am purposely skipping the very beginning of the show. She's escaped, she escaped the near assassination attempt that got that world's John Smith killed by Agent Campbell, who died out in the street, who was planning on telling Thomas, don't go to Vietnam. But that's never going to happen. She escapes and goes to Washington, where she chooses this moment to go back to her world. So visually, we get like the return to Washington, everything, as she walks up to the Lincoln Memorial, and it's all pristine and white and beautiful and inspiring, if you get inspired by that kind of thing. And I mean, it's historical. I'll give it that. It means, it signifies our country and the things that got us there, what we see, like the important people in our, history. How come we haven't made any statues or big monuments that are, like really popular about people from like the last, 100 years? I don't know. Maybe it's because we're just not that inspiring anymore. Or maybe the people that inspired us back then really didn't deserve statues, and now we don't know what to do with them. They're just tourist attractions. Anyway, she's brought back, and of course it's rubble. It's all rubble. And she's immediately caught. And I wanted to say, oh my God, Past Me was right. She is always getting caught. As soon as she shows up somewhere, she's immediately beset by somebody. But part of me feels like she wanted to get caught. Almost like why did she drive all the way to Washington? She's got some kind of goal here. She knows what she's doing. Getting caught might not have been on the menu, but she's resourceful. I mean, the guy that captures her, he seems like just a guy that got like a bad post. Like somebody didn't like this guy and just sent him out in the middle of nowhere, out on the borders of Washington, where they didn't even know he was alive. They thought he starved to death. So like when she gets the drop on him and she erases like evidence of that she'd been there, it's not a surprise. But the way that they held on the handle of the door kept me thinking that, did she get everything? But so far as the episode goes on, it doesn't seem like it had really mattered that much. especially by what happens by the end of this episode with John Smith, because she is there to kill him. And that's her main goal after getting away from John. Now she ends up at a little like bakery. It's like I don't even know how to like talk about it because we don't really see any of the surrounding area, what it looks like, if there's any kind of neighborhood. But this lady's baking bread, presumably to give to people that need it desperately in that area. I don't know how she's holding on. She's got burns, like old burns on her face, and she's clearly been through a lot. And, you know, hearing that this is Juliana Crane, you know, this is the person, you know, that, you know, has been defying people and been part of the revolution with Wyatt. And while she's waiting, you know, there's a guy played by Louis Ferreira. His character's name is Brad Bellows. And I always like to give shout outs to the character actors. He's been around forever and he just gets this little scene, you know. I love seeing these actors come in, even if they don't get much to do. So, Louis Ferreira, you were seen in this and I really liked you. But this is all setting up like she's in between places, in between meeting up with Wyatt. Will she get caught? Will this place get busted out? I don't know. But she tells, you know, the lady about the world from the films, the place that she's been, the place where, you know, Roosevelt is still alive, and people like even they're talking about Churchill and Stalin being alive. Like it's such a good thing. And, you know, we all know that Stalin's a piece of shit and Churchill. Everybody made made horrible choices to win World War II. Let's call that. And some of them, like Stalin, well, they were doing even more terrible things behind the scenes. And that is an interesting thing to discuss. But I don't think we'll go into it very much here. But the idea of like when we think about what had to be done to get World War II done, or what they thought had to be done. And history, you know, again, we talk about the greatest generation and what they did to stop the Nazis. And what we did to stop the Nazis and the Japanese was some pretty horrifying stuff. But we won. And I'm not saying that it wasn't, that life isn't better without the Nazis. But we definitely gained some extra problems just look at our world. I'm not saying that we should have lost. I'm just saying that winning cost us too. Winning cost us a lot. And over the years, as things have gone on, it's still costing us all these years later. So that's basically Juliana's arc. It's not much. And I'm only 8 minutes in and we're basically done with it. Now, the San Francisco stuff's a little more, you know, gets a little more meatier. Wyatt's barely in this. The BCR is barely in this. You know, they're just talking about, you know, get back to the revolution. You know, like, I've got my guns. I'm going to go start shit with the Reich. What are you going to do here? You're going to do more shit with the Japanese. And they were talking about the revolution, and it made me think about, like, you know, how they have to keep pouring it on. They can't stop. Like, you go, oh my gosh, like, you know, you're just going out there to do it. Wyatt lost. Yeah, he built up this revolution, this rebellion, and we saw him, like, in the first episode, just everything get destroyed. He loses basically everything. Yeah, here he is again, re-upping, regrouping, and going right back out there to keep it going. Because that's how you win. You don't win by taking breaks because of whatever reason. And that's one of the things that I feel like we're missing here in our world, in this world, the real world. Every time it seems like we gain some kind of momentum to push back, like during, you know, everything that surrounded, let's call it the George Floyd moment, where after we all saw a man get killed in front of us, we took to the streets, people just everywhere, man. It was bugging the hell out of the system. And then just winter came and we all went back inside. And I'm not saying everybody stopped, but it just ceased, and the reporting of it ceased. And they still talk about it like it's like they're still out there, but they're not. Not like it was. You don't win by giving up. The rebellion, if you really believe in it, you have to keep fighting. And I just, it's one of those things that scares me is like, we all talk about how we, hate this and we hate that. We want this to change. We want that to change. Well, what are we really doing about it? What are we really doing about it en masse? And I include myself there. So anybody who wants to be like, what the fuck? But revolutions aren't rebellions and things, and change doesn't happen by sitting on your hands. And unfortunately, that goes for both sides of something. So if the wrong side of our world decides to start doing things, which they're already making moves. Look at all the propaganda that is happening in this country on both sides too. But I'm already trying to like veer into that part of the conversation. But the last bit, there's the other bits for Japanese story before we get into all that, is we have Childen. Childen's making good on writing his letter to the Imperial Princess. His importance to this is more like they give that little moment where he doesn't think that the guy understands Japanese. And he's educated in his own ignorance that, like, in order to, fight one's enemy, one must understand and know one's enemy. Did they know Japanese before they started the rebellion? Maybe, probably, but they used it to, be able to understand their enemy. You're going to be walking around the streets not knowing what it says. You got to be able to fight your enemy on their terms. And if you don't understand their language, because they probably understand yours, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a bad time with you. Pizza instead of French fries. Anyway, that's a South Park joke, folks. But we have Kido. Kido's let off the leash now because of what happened. And in another incredible moment for this character, his investigation, he is a man who his loyalty has been tested, and they want him to close the Tagomi murder case, and they're insistent upon it, and he knows that there's something rotten in the Japanese front of this. And sorry, it's like 6:49 a.m. when I'm doing this, so pardon me. But he plays the man that had given him all that information in the previous episode, the one who like told him about, where his son is and everything else. And he tells this guy, well, we found your fingerprints on one of the bullets that killed Tagomi. And the look on the guy's face is like, hey, man, no, don't worry. I'm covering for you. Just, you got to make sure that, if you got to cover your tracks better. And this guy's like, oh, thank you so much. So he admits basically right there that he played a part and that Japan itself killed Tagomi. Somebody there wanted this to happen. They knew what would happen if they killed him. And there now, Kido knows that this is them that did this. And he had no evidence because the paperwork that he had in front of him said that there was no fingerprints or anything on any of the weapons. He played a hunch. He ended up being correct. And now he knows for sure that his own government is working against, his people. So that was a really interesting part of this. And then briefly, we do have the scene with the princess telling her higher-ups that the crown prince, the emperor himself, has said that they need to talk about ceasefire, to listen to them. Is she telling the truth? Because she tells him that it has to stay secret. But if anybody talks about this meeting, it could mean trouble. And I think if it is a lie, and it might be, throwing the prince and the emperor's name in there, It's basically like saying, like, would you like to talk to my boss? Because my boss is your boss. And, if you really want to, if you really want to involve them, we can. Or you can just take it from my word that if you're wrong, if you think I'm lying and you go above my head and you're wrong, you're dead. It is a very risky play for her, even as crown princess. I have a feeling she's lying and playing that card, but I'm not 100%. Now, that's it for the Japanese stuff. See, we're only 15 minutes in. The rest of this is John Smith and Helen and the Himmlers and the beginning of this episode and what they've been doing with Abernathy since they caught him. And they have been doing like a Twilight Zone type of show called Tales from the High Castle, where Abernathy is forced to host and debunk, and tell everybody that all the newsreels were lies and that this is all fiction, and we're going to televise those fictions, the scary things that they want you to be afraid of. Sound familiar? Sound like, people trying to make you believe things that aren't true? In this story, you have a white guy who's like working away at his little job, with the promise, that the American dream, you work hard and you rise up and you can be a somebody. You can be the guy who makes a lot of money for his family and blah, 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 blah. But in this world, he finds out that his company is now run by black people. Oh, no. The scary, scary black people that want to ruin their lives and take everything over and bang your wife and kids. They're in charge now and you're fired. And not only are you fired, but you have to train your replacement. No, I mean, look, that I think that's taking it a bit too far. If somebody asked me to train my replacement, I would just stick my middle finger so far up in their face. Now, in the Reich, you might not be able to do that. But in a world where they're controlled by black people, would you be able to do it either? I don't know. But it's all meant to bring fear to the populace, but also entertain. Oh, thank God. Thank God that's not what really happened. Oh, thank God these lies are all, it's all meant to brainwash you. And that, again, is a very, very... I don't know when the exact moment that propaganda pretty much has taken over our institutions and media. Things are like, I'm not going to sit here and pinpoint when it went bad, because both sides will be like, I think that the media has been bad since they first reported on a white man lynching a Negro. Or there'll be people that say it didn't happen. It's, it hasn't gotten really bad since, let's call it 2016, maybe a little before then. But it's always been around. But the levels and the amount and the surprising people that are involved in American propaganda right now, the one side wants to say that the other side is fake news. And the other side wants to say that the other is, well, really fake news. You got people just millionaires and billionaires funding channels like the Daily Wire and Truth Social and all these things that are like basically the opposite of truth. But they're saying what those there's scared, ignorant people out there of all colors, apparently, that want to hear how bad our country is and how we got to take it back from all the social change. And really, it's just a bunch of scared Christian nationalists, people who want power, people who want to keep power, people who don't care about what harm they do to others to get ahead, people who literally just want to, lick the boots of whoever could possibly take over. We see people talking almost like they're waiting for the new people to come so that they can be like, look, I talked nice about you before you got here. Like the people who kiss ass to like Russia and Korea and shit, like and other powers that be, and to the Republicans that are basically become the new Nazi party in this country. Like it's, and then you got the other side of things. You got the liberal side of things. I'm not going to let them off the hook either, because they make, like, if you go on like YouTube or whatever, you see like channels that will make a video about anything that has almost no substance. They'll make a video that says, we really got him. Somebody, put so-and-so like Marjorie Taylor Greene in her place. And then you watch the video and it's like nothing. There's nothing there. There's no actual, practically anything to talk about, but they are in the game too, because, and I question, like, what are their ultimate goals? Are they just trying to stoke fear in the other side too? Propaganda, again, has always been there, and it has been used, for positive and negative things. But like most things, the negative is always the most popular to focus on. Anything positive out there is basically nobody watches. That says something about us, folks. And that wasn't even as far as I thought I was going to go on this whole propaganda thing, because I really want to. I think talking about, that we have freedom of speech in this country. But there's a big problem with people understanding that, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but there are consequences to free speech. Your ability to open your mouth and say whatever the fuck comes into your head doesn't mean that somebody else's reaction to your free speech doesn't mean that they're going to use their free speech to do something about it. But they would have you believe that they're being silenced. Nobody's silencing them. It's just when you say something insane and people reject it, it's because it's insane. And not because, stop. They want you to feel like every insane thing that comes out of their mouth is the right thing. And they do it. They don't even they just go, right? They look at you like, uh-huh. And I think about the most ignorant fucks that I know who always try to get you to just agree with their bullshit. If they say it enough times, you'll just eventually be worn down and be like, yeah, you're right. I think there needs to be consequences to disinformation that it does not seem to happen. We do not hold these companies. We take to task all kinds of people who don't even actually say hateful things, and we silence them. Yet we let the hateful people keep being hateful and spread lies, like blatant lies. They're out there. They're provable lies, and yet these platforms monetize them, popularize them, put them in front of you all the time, and we don't even hold them responsible for their roles in this. Where's their goal? And again, the goal is money. They don't even care that they're spreading lies as long as it's getting enough views. Can you imagine the fall of society because we didn't prosecute people that are actual dangers to society for spreading lies, but because they make enough money for people, it's okay? But if somebody who is nothing to these platforms says something, they're removed, they're silenced. The actual dissenting voices are silenced. I don't know. That, to me, is the real, consequences of, anyway, Jesus. So Himmler's whole thing. Himmler, after being assassinated, almost assassinated, has become super paranoia, and he's very, very ill. And he's flip-flopping on people, attacking him, looking for all kinds of weakness, because, like he says at the end of this episode, he's not looking for, loyalty. He's looking for devotion, someone who will absolutely go down for him. And then he gets the report from Agent Campbell about what happened over there, and that John Smith is dead. And you just know immediately, yeah, he's going over there. Once he knows that John Smith is dead, and he knows the rules that if you're dead over there, if you're not dead over there and you try to go over, you're going to get turned into goo. Now, Mrs. Himmler, holy cow. I should have written this actress's name down. Mrs. Himmler, holy cow. She's a very, very scary person. She's like what Helen is supposed to be. Can you imagine a whole world? It's like if the Karens took over, right? But like if the Karens took over and were also like Cloris Leachman and like the reaction to these people should be like the reaction to Cloris Leachman's character in Young Frankenstein, where every time you hear her name, like horses freak out. This lady's scary. And she comes in early because she wants to check in around like the Smith household. She wants to throw shade at Helen for staying away. You know, she wants to throw shade at how she raises her children. She throws around little sayings that are just very, very deeply upsetting. But they come in to judge. She's coming in there to judge. And again, this brought up Jehovah's Witness things and how this world that they live in that's taken over is like a big rat ship. And that I've said this in the other video, that this kind of society, it crumbles from within because everybody is like afraid of your fellow man. You're all like, you go home, you close the door, and you're peeking out the window at your neighbors. Are they truly Nazis like I am? I better make sure. But Himmler's wife tricks one of Helen's kids into telling him, oh, there's nothing wrong with Uncle Hank. Boom. Helen's already telling John, like, dude, they are working on a case to get rid of all of us. You, like, this is not like some dinner. This is Himmler finding out who he has to take out. And it doesn't matter that John's been like there with the device and it's not moving fast enough, and Himmler wants his world. He wants room to live. He wants all the universes. Basically, I think he just wants to run and hide in some universe, and then I guess and he must think that he'll run it from somewhere else. Because he's like talking about, let's just send biological weapons over there. Let's just kill everybody that lives there. Let's get this done because I'm dying. He can see his world not, he sees himself not making it to this big, the big takeover of the entire world. That's his fear. I'm not going to live to see myself be on top. But this dinner does remind me of a few Jehovah's Witness meetings and meals with people that come over to your house and are really just there probing. See if you're really one of them. But it's also brought up that Berlin is concerned about Himmler and how he's acting. Just like there were Nazis that wanted to take out Hitler because the guy's, going too far in one way or another. The degrees of Nazism. It's crazy. Oh, well, this guy's only, I'm a Nazi, but, I'm not like that kind of a Nazi. Like Himmler's kind of a Nazi. I'm more like a chill Nazi, right? Is that what they're saying? But when they bring up, like, they dropped the bomb on Washington because they knew everybody would be in church, well, that was actually, look, it's terrible, but that was smart. So after this terrible dinner where Himmler is sitting with his girls like next to him, like, that's creepy enough. Almost like saying, I have your girls next to me and I could kill them whenever I want. But we switch over to Caroline Abernathy's wife, the Man in the High Castle's wife. And thank goodness she's finally saying it, because she's like, you got to stop doing this. It doesn't, like, he's so unwilling to risk her life and his own life. Like, that he just keeps going along. And she's begging him, and he just ignores her. And John Smith calls him in there in the big old, glass globe room, and he talks about one of the theories from Heisenberg, that the presence of an observer changes the outcome of the experiment, and that what happens in one universe can change other worlds. He's sitting there trying to figure out, like, what he's going to do, right, and how he's going to go about it. He's formulating this plan. So as I see it, John goes over there. The girls don't exist. Thomas exists. He's dead, but nobody knows it. All he has to do is either kill that universe's Helen, or somehow convince her. He's probably going to kill her. I'm trying to be nice and give him other options. Or he could convince her that, hey, I'm a different John Smith, and I got 2 girls to bring over. But it's more likely he just plans on killing her and then escaping this world for that one. Now, that would mean if he's going to escape, he would have to cover his tracks, which would mean he would probably have to destroy the device so that nobody else could come through. Will that be where it leads? I don't know. But that's where we're going to stop. I've only gone 31 minutes. I'm hoping that for the next part, when I talk about episode 5, it'll be about the same length and it won't be like too long. But that's where we're going to pause. I'm going to pause this recording anyway, and we're going to continue with episode 5, and like literally blink of an eye. Okay, so like I said, we're immediately back to talk about episode 5. Mauvaise foi. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. This was a really hard episode to watch. And it's a real, like, this is a pointed episode that tells me, like, why it's not an easy watch. It's not an easy show. I'm emotional right now because it's just, it's bringing up old feelings. I said that I'm not a patriotic person, but I am you don't have to be patriotic to, just watching what people do to each other and why, and how we can all, any one of us, under certain circumstances, we say that we'll do one thing, but with a gun to your head, with a gun to your family's head, proverbially, metaphorically, literally, what can happen to someone to make choices that they can't take back. And you've got Keto and John in this episode that both made decisions 15 years ago that are now haunting them to the point where they, Keto is told in this episode, you made your choice 15 years ago. You can't change back. You can't go back on that. And it's the same for John. They both were put in positions. They had a choice. They made it for their families, for themselves, for the sake of hope or something down the road. They went along with something they knew to be wrong. And now, all these years later, the consequences, the chickens have come to roost, put whatever kind of metaphor or analogy you want in here. But both men are seeing the awfulness. Keto is seeing it in corruption and lies within his own government to keep things going, to keep power, to lie to, to do things that are just wrong to their own people, to get things done. And they have to face what they've done in the past to survive. John Smith has to face what he did after Germany took over. We should say Nazi Germany, but it's just whatever. This episode's going to be broken up into John's stuff, the BCR stuff, and Juliana's stuff. Like I said, this one's hard. This one gets me upset inside. we're going to talk about Juliana's stuff first because it's the briefest. Then we'll do BCR, and then we'll do John. Basically, Juliana's arc is kind of carried over right in from the last episode. She gets to finally meet up with Wyatt. She's telling people stories about the films and what she saw, and talking about the Nazi trials. They gave these scumbags fair trials, because once it was all open in front of the world, all they had was excuses. They were helpless to stop it. But that if they could be beaten in that world, in the world that she's went to, that they can be beaten here. Yeah. I mean, this whole thing has what do you do? What do you do when you lose? Do you give over, try to survive, try to wait for your opportunities? And it's not easy, I can't just go, you should do this, you should do that. There's all these things that we would like to do, but the reality is, depending on your life situation, what would you do? Got it. It's really hard, even trying to talk about this in any way that's doesn't, who am I to tell anybody, but Wyatt and her have a moment. And I love it when he reaches out to her, as if she's not real, and she flinches. And they talk about that. He thought she was gone, and she has been gone, and she's been all over the place and seen so many different things. What is real? When do you stop? When you just say, okay, this is where I'm gonna be, and accept this reality. They do kiss, and it's nice because it's not like when they were she's in that other world with that guy Russ, and people hey, you want to this guy clearly wants to date her, she has no interest. It's not because of Wyatt that she doesn't do anything, really. It's just she can't. Anything she does, I don't know. But they kiss, and she learns about Helen's movements in the neutral zone. They talk about, that she went there, she came back, and that's the crack in the marriage, that's the way to get in. That if she came back, if she left, there was a reason. If she came back, there was a reason. If there's a crack in this marriage and Juliana is, familiar with their family, that's her way in. And that's it. That's all we get for her. But again, it brings up, even in this brief amount of time, they talk about that part about, everybody has an excuse for why they did what they did. Now, in BCR world, you've got children listening to the BCR talk about their situation. You got Hampton sitting there, and they're having this meal, and they're talking about what do we do now that there's a ceasefire? And he talks about how that first time he picked up a gun, and how it felt powerful. That we could, this could actually mean, change. We could, I'm finally doing something. I'm finally making, picking up this powerful thing, and this symbol of something that's, people are afraid of, that this could be used as a tool to win and get our, society back. And then he talks about, that I, the ability to put the gun down. Finally, I picked it up to feel powerful. I want to put it down. I want to be able to put it down, though, when everything, when we win. But I don't know. It's nobody ever really puts the gun down in reality. We're never safe enough. It's this nice idea of if we just do this, we're saved. We can all relax. But that's not how things are. Not in a show, and not in the reality that we all live in. And there's this tense exchange when they finally have this meeting with Inaguchi. They have the secret meeting out in the middle of nowhere. You know, realities for both sides. They have to face it. You know, Japanese problems and theirs. You know, discussing what would you do to fight. You know, like you talk to us like we don't. You know, like why? You know, we're fighting for our home the same way you would fight for yours, and we just want as black people, and I'm as their characters that are black. They're fighting. They've been fighting, you know, like the guy tries to bring up slavery and like, you're not even from here. So what do you give a shit about? But like, there's a difference between, you know, like where you come from and where you end up. What's your home? And America is home. Africa is where you came from. We all came from somewhere, but it's where we actually make our, you know, plant our flag, as you might say. Where you decide to make your home, where you decide to fight, you know, where and when you're going to fight for something. We all fight for the death for your home. Now, Hampton talks about having a free state for black people. And immediately, I mean, I was just like, it's like basically making a reservation, like choosing a reservation. And in my opinion, that kind of thing never lasts. I mean, I'm not saying that... And it's horrible to even say this, I think, like, you know, because reservations are still a thing. They still exist. Did they really work? Should they have worked? I don't. But it would never last. You would never be able to put the gun down in that situation for sure. Because someone in this world that we live in, somebody always comes for what you have. Given enough time. I'm not in, and that's not to see like, oh, we're never safe, so just don't, you know, do this, that, and the other. I mean, in history, everything rises and falls. Eventually, somebody gets it in their head that they want what you have in a bigger sense. And eventually, somebody makes a move. It's the reality of the world we live in. So, as nice of an idea as they might think it is, and maybe that's the only thing they think that they can get. Maybe this is their one shot, but it's pie in the sky. And as quickly as the celebrations would be that we have a free state, just as quickly they'd be fighting to keep it and lose it. Maybe that's cynical and pessimistic, but I don't know. But they talk about, you know, they're walking away and they're like, you know, look, this guy, he's talking mad. We're all mad. He's a man of war, and he has to suddenly try to talk about peace. And just as that is said, I love the impact, actually, of how that looked. Hampton's immediately killed by a sniper. And sniper bullets are everywhere, and it's Keto. Because, of course, it's Keto. Comes in, arresting everybody, including Inaguchi, for treason. These are the men who killed Tagomi. This is the whole thing that they're trying to do. This whole close the book, close the case. These are the guys that are going to get like everyone in the Japan side of things killed. These are the corrupt people that want to keep going this fight that they're going to lose against the Reich. They're going to lose against China. And Keto is a part of this. Except now he knows that the people he works for, the people giving him direct orders, not the princess that he's saying, you know, he wants to, you know, he gave her his word to find out about Tagomi's assassins. He's sitting in the room with the assassins themselves, and they throw that in his face. You are a corrupt person. You're this guy who's been working here for 15 years, and you've done all these terrible things. He's basically like the cast of LA Confidential, right? The characters in LA Confidential. All these guys that made like really horrible choices for the sake of the greater good, to get things done, to get your perp. It's the same as John. And he as he tells them, like, I know. But as Keto walks away again, has to sit there and think, like, where do I really land on this? These these choices I made in 15 years, like, it's basically saying he would have to destroy his life. He would have to probably die in order to affect some kind of change, because he would have to make himself what he would consider a traitor himself. But he knows, the man inside, the man who 15 years ago wasn't this person, knows that he is in too deep. But he also sees what it's done to his kid. He sees what it's doing to his country, his countrymen. And Chilton is let go. It's a brief scene. It's very, with a lot of Miller's Crossing, please don't, we don't have to do this. And he does get let go. The BCR questions whether or not, they killed Hampton by doing this, but no, they didn't kill him. He wanted that meeting, like they said. This is what happens when people really try to affect change. This is what happens. People die. And again, unless people are willing to go the full 9, I don't know. But like, when we fight for something better or whatever, what are we giving up of ourselves to get it, or what we consider better? And everybody's opinions on what is better. Everybody thinks their side is right. And the whole thing is, it's like, it's all just ridiculous. Because until we can stop seeing all the differences in each other and come together as a global community of just people, and stop worrying so much about our belief systems and trying to get to magical heavenly paradises that we've earned, instead of just being good to each other. And I know that's, some people would call me incredibly naive. But that's the world worth fighting for. How do you get to that world without a bunch of killing? How do you get to that world without all the blood? How do you stand, how do you get the attention of the entire world to just shut the fuck up and stop? Anyway, Chilton goes home and finds all his broken things, all this stuff that he's accrued, and it's been just destroyed by the Kempeitai. And he talks about, you're going to have to go into hiding again. Yukiko is like, you'll have to hide. And, we know his story now. Like, he hid. He almost died. And Chilton's finally like, he just throws the shattered remains of a vase away, a little piece of it, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This thing, they're just things. All these things he was protecting. The history of our country. They're just things. People are what matters. I think he's finally learning that. Now we get to John. His story starts at the beginning, at 1946, at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. The bomb has been dropped. Everybody saw it. The way that they talk about it on the radio, like we've finally been liberated by our German liberators. Put the blame on our own country that we fought against. The propaganda that's on the radio saying, "Oh, we're all so happy that that it's over and we're saved and we're taken over." And you have these men in a room. This could have been a play right here, like a one-act play, where you got Eric Lang's character, Rufus Sewells, and Danny, who is the Jewish character in this scene. We have a crying baby, by the way, and boy, oh boy. But it's join or die. Sorry, I just don't like crying babies in scenes. It's like awful to my ears. Not Babies aren't awful. I can't stand a crying baby. It's a noise that you can't ignore, and if you ignore it, it means you're a piece of shit. Basically, you can't ignore a crying baby. Anyway, and I want to desperately. Anyway, sorry, but it's basically join or die. It's just a piece of cloth. We put this armband on. It doesn't mean anything. We bide our time. We can stop this. We can keep going. We just gotta we're still brothers. We'll figure it out. But John's just already they did what we couldn't. If we would have had the ability to have the bomb, we would have, and we did. They talk about who has the will, basically, to do the unthinkable. And what they have, it works. And that's what John says. And as we cut to him arriving in this other world, where it's, he's just sitting in his car, looking around. Everybody just walking around like normal, no fear. And he gets a dose of everything that he would have had things been different. He goes home and Helen is loving. She adores her husband. When she says, "Oh, I know what you came back for," after kissing him, meaning they have a great sex life. It's not just about the kids and everything. They love each other. They get it on. There's a genuine feeling of loving from her to him, which he does not have. Thomas is alive. He gets to experiencing everything, including having everything kind of blow up in his face. In the main reality of this show, Rachel Nichols shows up. She's an actress who's been around for a while. She was on Alias. She was in the G.I. Joe movies. As a wife companion, her name Martha. Clearly a spy. Said by Himmler's wife. I think that's probably what this is, right? I don't remember. But just another thing of oh, you won't even notice I'm here. So just another thing to push Helen. But Thomas, in this world, he's noticing that John's off. And it's the whole Vietnam discussion that Juliana told him to have with his dad. But in the meantime, as they're discussing this, we have a black couple that come into this restaurant, this diner that they're at. The laws have been passed. They are allowed to be there. And they are getting refused service. And Thomas is sitting there waiting for his father to do something because his father, this John, would do something. He would say something. He would stand up for what is right. He would face face down the people that are doing something wrong. And Thomas is looking there horrified. Now, he could have done something too. But he was looking to his father, the man that he knows, thought he knows, doesn't know. The differences between this John and that John. This John being so warped by everything that happened to him, he just sits there. Don't get involved. Don't fight for this. Don't fight for that. You'll die for this. But if you don't fight for anything, you'll lose everything eventually. Or maybe, maybe you age out. Maybe you die before anything really happens. But if you haven't done anything to, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where I feel like I'm standing on a soapbox a little bit and telling everybody you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and it's instead of just I'm posing the questions, I'm putting the ideas out there to myself, to everyone. You see something wrong like that. If I were to see somebody do that to somebody in front of me today, I know that I would do something. I know that about myself, at least. That's the one thing at least I know about myself. I don't do it all the time. There was a time last week I found out something that happened to somebody. It was actually about 2 weeks ago, really. And I found out something that happened to somebody, and I got so mad. I was like, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to say something to this person. And because I was afraid that I might lose my job because we're in this transition mode where I have new owners running my company. In the back of my mind, I thought if I say something, I could get in trouble. And it might seem small and meaningless in the end. So I sit here and I go, oh, I'd be that person. Right? I said that just a few seconds ago. But it's one thing to be able to do it like out in the world, you know? I say I'm at like Walmart and I see it happen. And I don't work at Walmart. What the fuck do I care? I can get up in somebody's face because there's no stakes in it for me. But as soon as there's stakes, what did I do? I didn't do it. And now I'm mad at myself because I had a chance to stand up for somebody and I didn't. The world wants us to be like what I did. We do it every day. We don't stand up for anything. Unless there's no risk involved, like real risk. Nobody helps. Thomas looks horrified and disappointed in his father. This is the system he fought for. It's all a fucking lie. John doesn't have time, though, to argue anymore about Vietnam with his son because Danny comes over for game day. Danny, the friend that was in that room with him when they made the decision, he tells Danny to run. He gives him some food and tells him to get as far as he can. But here we are. You know, Danny's at his front porch now, getting ready to watch football with him. But he can't handle it. Says he has to, like, Danny says he's gonna leave. He starts telling Danny, like, I'm sorry, like, I didn't have a choice, blah, 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 like, we're brothers, we were always brothers. But when the time came, John chose himself. Danny was in the back of a truck, headed towards execution. All he had to do was open the latch. Would it have cost John something? Probably. Would they have lived if they had gotten out of that truck? I don't know. But if you don't do anything you don't know, then you have to live with those decisions like John does. John let Danny die, and now he has to look at him in the present. And that's where the episode ends. If you didn't like this video, I understand. These are hard things to talk about. It's a hard show to watch. This was a hard one to make. But if you did like this discussion, don't forget we're going to be doing part 5 next week. Whether or not it'll be episode 6 and 7 or just episode 6 and then episode 7 in another video, I don't know. But again, if you are liking these videos, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, bell, all that crap. And I hate to end kind of on this kind of solemn note because I am upset. And I've got a lot of editing and recording other stuff to do today. But I hope everybody out there has a good day. I hope that I gave you something to think about a little bit at least. And I hope to Adam out there that these videos are at least something in the realm of what you wanted. I'm still having a bit of a hard time doing these again. It's interesting, but this one was hard. These 2 episodes were really hard. Maybe it's because I watched 2 episodes and I decided to make one video about it. But here we are. So, for better or for worse, that was The Man in the High Castles, episodes 4 and 5 of the final season. I'll be back next week for episodes 6 and 7 at some point. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.